Well, between now and Tuesday, November 5th, the two most important stories we will be covering at this hour are the multiple prosecutions of criminal defendant Donald Trump and the presidential election. There are, of course, obviously, hugely important stories going on at the same time around the world, in Ukraine, in Gaza, and Israel, and elsewhere around the world, in Africa, and Asia, South America. But the presidential election is the most important of all of those stories because what happens in all of those other stories around the world after November 5th largely depends on who wins the election. If Donald Trump wins the election, the Israeli government and the Israeli military will be free to, as Donald Trump puts it, finish the job in Gaza. Those are Trump's words, finish the job. He means kill as many people as you want to. Donald Trump will not try to achieve a ceasefire the way President Biden has been working to achieve a ceasefire. And in Ukraine, if Donald Trump wins the election, Vladimir Putin will be free to continue to kill Ukrainians in his imperialistic march to take over Ukraine without any resistance at all from the American president. And if Donald Trump is elected president, the story of criminal defendant Trump in effect disappears. Donald Trump would be able to end both federal prosecutions against him by Special Prosecutor Jack Smith, who would be instantly fired by Donald Trump, and the two state prosecutions against him in New York and Georgia would be forced into at least a 4-year delay until Donald Trump is no longer president. If Donald Trump wins, then justice loses. If Donald Trump wins, human decency loses. If Donald Trump wins, then all is lost. And as of tonight, most American voters know that. Joe Biden is going to win millions more votes than Donald Trump. But this is the country where you can come in second with the voters and still become president, still win, thanks to the perversion of democracy the founders called the Electoral College. And as of tonight, not enough people in a handful of so-called battleground states who will decide this election understand the stakes of this election. Not enough people in those few states yet understand what they will lose if Donald Trump wins. And so we begin tonight with what is now the most important of those stories that we will be covering this year because it will determine the outcome of the rest of those stories. We begin with the presidential election. In last night's presidential primaries, Joe Biden was the first to win enough delegates to secure the Democratic nomination for president. Hours later, Donald Trump won enough delegates to secure the Republican nomination for president. And today, President Biden continued his campaigning in battleground states, appearing at the opening of the Biden-Harris Wisconsin Coordinated Campaign Headquarters in Milwaukee. The Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel notes it's the first Milwaukee campaign base for a Democratic presidential nominee in at least 20 years. The Biden-Harris campaign is opening 43 other campaign offices in Wisconsin, all over the state. Here's President Biden speaking at the Wisconsin campaign headquarters in Milwaukee today.
Our freedoms are at stake. They really are at stake, not a joke. The right to choose, the right to be able to determine whether you're going to get to vote, how we vote. It's all in your hands. And you folks like you all across the country. Because this is how I won the first time I ever ran. This is how we're going to win again. A lot of you helped me in 2020. And we make sure he was a loser. He is a loser. And we're going to make sure that happens again, right?
At a campaign event in Milwaukee, the president explained what his infrastructure bill means for daily life.
It means wider sidewalks for children walking to school, safer bike lanes for residents and visitors, dedicated bus lanes to get to work faster, new trees to provide shade, and modern infrastructure to prevent sewage from flowing into the Milwaukee River and the Lake Michigan. These are life-changing improvements They're also going to make it easy for historic black communities in the North and Latino communities in the South to access jobs, school, and entertainment. Opportunities in the city and central hub, from watching the Milwaukee Bucks play to attending Milwaukee Area Technical College. My predecessor talked about Infrastructure Week for 4 years. He didn't get a single thing done, not one. Ron Johnson, every Republican in Congress, voted against the Inflation Reduction Act, which is helping fund these projects, and he wants to repeal it.
President Biden explained some of what is at stake on the presidential ballot.
Just this week, Donald Trump said cuts to Social Security and Medicare are on the table. Instead of cutting Social Security and Medicare to give tax breaks to the super wealthy, I'm going to protect and strengthen Social Security and Medicare to make the wealthy begin to pay their fair share.
Keep this number in mind. Joe Biden won Georgia by just 11,779 votes in 2020. And on Election Day yesterday in Georgia, Nikki Haley won almost 20,000 votes. All of those voters knew that Nikki Haley had already dropped out of the presidential campaign, but still, yesterday on Election Day, 20,000 voters went to the polls in Georgia to vote in the presidential primary for Nikki Haley against Donald Trump. That is a sign of potential weakness for Donald Trump in November. Nikki Haley's total vote in Georgia was 77,000, which includes early votes cast before Nikki Haley dropped out of the presidential campaign. Today, the Biden-Harris campaign released this statement. Haley's voters continue to make it crystal clear that Donald Trump is not building a coalition that can win in November. Suburban, moderate, and independent voters are rejecting Trump's divisive rhetoric and extreme policies, and it's no surprise Donald Trump is running on the same extreme MAGA agenda that has cost Republicans election after election, threatening democracy, overturning Roe, passing a national abortion ban, repealing the Affordable Care Act, and cutting Medicare and Social Security.